Hello, my name is Paul Perez-Jimenez. For the Advanced Historical and Social-Cultural Foundations of Education, or the 8322 course, I propose this visual representation titled Diversity, Ethics, and Pedagogy as groundwork for effective teaching and seen through a social foundations of education lens. As support for the three focus points mentioned in the title, I would like to concentrate on several of the 55 cross-disciplinary chapters as references, or I should say, several quotes from these chapters to support my premise. These would be found in the Handbook of Research in the Social Foundations of Education and edited by Stephen Tozier, Bernardo Gallegos, and Annette Henry. And to further the groundworks analogy, or this great edifice, I would like to suggest that social foundations of education, if this foundation of education is to be the floor, the ceiling of this great edifice would be teaching. And the three focus points are like pillars to academia, much like a huge cathedral in which the great pillars that spread out with vast number of supporting arches or topics would hold up an intricate ceiling. And as I previously mentioned, for this media text, the three focus points are diversity, ethics, and pedagogy, critical pedagogy to be more precise. And I consider these four focus points as crucial in the teaching profession. And as a mere 10-year novice teacher, I've come to the realization that these 3 points are crucial in the formation of effective teachers. And as a contextual background, or the introduction, directly quoting Tozier's handbook, which divides the social foundations field into 5 distinct sections, and here they're seen as great pillars in the background, and they are one, the original disciplines, which encompass such topics as the history, the sociology, and the philosophy of education. The second section, or great pillar in the background, is emergent perspectives, which embodies subsequent philosophies such as like Marxism and postmodernism and postcoloniality. The third is institutions, globalizations, and power, characterized in public schools, literacies, and hegemony. The fourth is popular culture, media, and technology, portrayed in, of course, the internet and as ubiquitous and visual. And the fifth section, or pillar, being social aspects such as culture, which further divided into minorities and other characteristics such as race and sex. But in my experience, and in great part as my teaching philosophy, and personally as well, I hold that diversity, ethics, and pedagogy, or style, have formed my view of teaching, which I place, of course, at the top of my analogy as the supported ceiling. And of course, the whole social phenomena, or great cathedral, would be education in general, and thus I would call this whole edifice the cathedral of education. If we place diversity as keystone in an arch as the central point, I propose that teachers should not only be able to understand diversity, but they must also practice it in their classroom as an essential device in their teaching toolbox. Ross Cullen and Michael Apple, in their work on globalization, schooling, and literacies in an unsettled age, quote the New London Group and state that cultural and linguistic diversity is a classroom resource just as powerfully as it is a social resource in the formation of new civic spaces and new notions of citizenship. Furthermore, diversity in controversial times must be practiced as a human virtue, for students often see the effects of intolerance. Ian Harris, one of my favorite writers, declares in his paper on the many faces of peace education that since wars occur as a result of conflicts between different groupings of human individuals, peace education promotes respect for different cultures and helps students appreciate the diversity of the human community. To wrap up the emphasis on diversity, I propose Erskine Dutton's chapter titled Social Foundations and the preparation of teacher educators, which declares that new teachers need to understand the full significance of diversity in a democratic society and how that bears on instruction, school leadership, and governance. As a fervent teacher storyteller, I believe that ethics as central issue should also be used by teachers in their bag of tricks, such as in telling ethical and moral stories in order to show students what ethics looks like, or what good ethics is. Danica Chapman, in the chapter titled Critical Race Theory, points out that stories build consensus, a common culture of shared understandings, and a deeper, more vital ethics. And in Brian Warnick's chapter on surveillance cameras in schools and ethical analysis, ethics is touted as important to student conversations and maturation. Its developmental aspect is important to educational ethics because what may be morally acceptable outside of schools may be more problematic inside of schools. Warnick continues by stating one of the best definitions of ethics that I have ever seen or heard. He states that ethics is about balancing possible harms and benefits to arrive at a justifiable point of moral equilibrium. And finally, as one of my favorite subjects, critical pedagogy, and I have done my best not to quote Paulo Freire, at least not yet. Stephen Tozer, in Chapter 1, or The Evolution of Social Foundations of Education, stipulates the empowering of teachers in pushing for empowerment, for he states that critical pedagogy is not likely to go away soon, and is what might be called an insufficiently theorized relationship between the critical pedagogy and the teacher and administrator actions in schools that would actually make a democratic difference. And I, as probably most teachers, have plenty of harrowing stories of administrators demanding that we jump through hoops for no reason other than their power-hungry egos. And I am a staunch believer that teachers are the noblest of creatures, even sometimes beyond that of some nuns and priests, for we actually really do go through hell. I could go on, but for the brevity's sake and my deadline, I leave you with Linda Stone's chapter on philosophy of education, which does a fantastic job of summarizing critical pedagogy, using, of course, Paulo Freire's notion. She states that action that is praxis, or reflective action, is the process of critical consciousness. Its central elements are dialogue, the word, and naming, which, of course, as teachers, we must be prepared to do on a daily basis. Critical pedagogy calls us to attempt to free ourselves and our oppressors, and this calls for a great deal of nobility and love, for that matter, which as teachers we must be prepared for. Dr. Ron, I hope you enjoyed as much as I enjoyed making this presentation, and thank you for the handbook. I know I will be using it for quite a while.